The following production is intended for entertainment purposes only. We are not legal professionals. We do not speak for any government agency, and the opinions expressed here are our own. Relax.
Yeah, let's record this because I think this is an important conversation that needs to happen.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about the Fred Durst look that I'm trying to pull off. It's actually Fred Durst slash Jesse James West Coast Choppers
Okay.
pre any racist comments or pre-cancellation, whatever he did.
Did he get canceled?
Yeah, years ago.
No.
Uh, you know what? I think what the straw that, because I'm such a gossip connoisseur, I think the straw that did him in was he cheated on his wife, which was Julia. Wasn't she some sort of American sweetheart? His wife,
I don't
Julia
remember.
Roberts, I want to say.
Really?
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
It might not have been Julia Roberts, but it was one of them American sweetheart actresses. And he cheated on her. I want to say with like a porn star or something, and that's what made him fall out of good graces
Okay.
initially. But there might have been some like racist comments in there.
Hmm. I don't remember that. I didn't really follow him that much, but
Sandra Bullock,
okay.
Sandra Bullock.
What I was thinking, do you know Chino Moreno?
Sounds familiar.
Deftones?
Yeah, yeah,
That's kind of the vibe I'm getting. Like
fuck yeah,
maybe like if you were wearing Dickies, maybe.
yeah,
Uh
yeah, dude.
okay. I
I am.
dig it.
It'd be weird to point the camera at my pants right
Are
now.
you actually wearing Dickies?
Well, I'm not wearing Dickies, but I'm wearing khaki jeans, dude.
Okay.
I'm kind of channeling Dick.
So speaking of, and this is kind of what we were getting at. What I wanted to get on the pod is like, what looks have you tried, or what looks do you wish you could pull off that you just either can't or
Never had the
uh,
opportunity.
yeah, yeah.
There's a couple of them. This look has a few different flavors. So the West Coast choppers, Jesse James look is one that I definitely wanted. I feel like since then it's been co-opted into the meth head look, which I still kind of dig a little bit, not gonna lie.
You dig that
Not gonna
method?
lie. I just
Do
don't
you,
want to throw on
do
myself.
you for that meth head look? Do you just like put sharpies in your pocket and cell phone chargers, random hard drives
It's actually a look that I think you're quite familiar with. You've even donned a version of this. It's
of meth head?
yeah, yeah, definitely. But I mean, I wouldn't call it a look of meth head, but it's the meth head West Coast choppers look. And it's gonna have like a flat build hat with it turned up like this.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It could be if the really silly fellas, the wanksters, the jesters of the group will wear it back and maybe even at an angle.
Yeah.
I would like to do that. But the normal uh Peckerwood, they would call
Oh,
themselves maybe? Or is
no,
that
yeah, you can't do that.
Oh, okay, my bad.
I thought I'm pretty sure isn't that a oh, I know that it's a white prison gang, but I
Yeah.
think that they're yeah, like a you don't want to be a Peckerwood.
You don't want to be a Peckerwood? Oh.
I don't want to be a Peckerwood. I hope you don't want to.
You asked me before on one of the previous recordings what was some of the nicknames I had as a child, and I said it was nothing good. Oh, it was when Margaret was on. It was like, oh, it's nothing good. Peckerwood was one of them. That was I got constantly called Peckerwood by the kids in my neighborhood growing up in
Yeah.
Midwest
Well,
City.
but you
They were
were
using it as a slur. They weren't saying, "Hey, fella, hey, good guy."
yeah. Well, because you were like one of the only white kids, weren't you?
Yeah, I was one of three from kindergarten to seventh grade.
Yeah.
There was three of us. Well, there was more in kindergarten. Just after kindergarten, is when I went to Oklahoma City School District. In an Oklahoma City School District, especially in the 90s, in the 80s and 90s, it was, um, yeah, it was mostly minorities, mostly African American. Second was Native American, and then Hispanic folks. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, it was one of three of us, and they didn't like
And,
me. We weren't in a
and
group. It
oh,
wasn't.
the other two whites didn't like you?
Yeah, we weren't popular, or we didn't stick together.
Didn't mesh,
Other
yeah.
whites.
All right. So one of the looks that I wish that I could pull off is the rolled up jeans. Like rolled up
Hmm.
jeans with maybe some not cowboy boots, but like some stylish boots, you know?
No, I don't. I can't see you in this look at all.
Well,
Well, what kind of
I
jeans
think
are we talking? Like cowboy?
no, just blue jeans.
Okay. With some
Um,
shit kickers,
like
or maybe
uh,
more like workers' boots,
so work type boots, not like
square
the
toe.
Caterpillar, but like they're like work boots that aren't intended for actual work.
Yeah, yeah, the
You know what I mean?
supervisor's boots,
Exactly. Yeah,
the
but
the
I've tried it.
ranger.
I've tried it before though. I've tried to roll up my jeans, and I just feel like people can like they can tell, like
Yeah,
they like oh, this dude's fake.
I don't know how blue jeans mesh with that style though. I thought a cuff blue jeans cuffed up is kind of rocker or
Yeah,
punk a little bit.
well, yeah, kind of rockabilly greaser.
Yeah.
But that's so that like that style of boots with the pants rolled up like they would have in the 50s. Um, I don't know. Greaser, that's another style that I wish that I could pull off, but hey, I'm
This
bald
I
and
feel like is like the grandson of the greaser. And
yeah,
what's wild is my dad was a greaser.
yeah,
Yeah, he was definitely like that was one of his faces one of his personas was the greaser, was the biker
yeah.
greaser.
I think I
Slick
think I
back
told you.
tattoos.
Did I tell you that my dad was in a biker gang? I think I've told
Yeah.
you that. Yeah, so I've got a little greaser in me too.
Okay.
I just, in fact, I had when I had hair, I greased it.
Yeah.
I literally greased it. I had freaking hair grease.
I met you when you had hair, and
Oh,
it
dude,
was
wasn't that
it was
man?
hard back. It was a hard part, but it was back.
Oh, I miss those days.
Yeah, dude. I missed growing hair. I've always wanted to have long hair and I never got to do it. The state
Yeah,
that my
yeah.
hair's in now, it has to be short to even be present. Like to even be taken seriously, it needs to be short or else cut it all off.
Well, you went to the military basically right out of high school, didn't you?
Yeah, I sure did.
So yeah,
I joined while I was in high school.
you didn't have much time to grow the hair out.
Mm-mm. Um, A beard is another thing that I always wanted, but I've had a chance to grow a beard, post law enforcement, and I can grow a good beard. I still will continue to grow a beard. Probably I'll have beard seasons and not beard seasons. But yeah, beard was one that I always wanted, and I finally got to do it. And yeah, it's cool. Beard.
Well, that's one of the reasons I've got one now because as a cop, obviously you can now apparently,
Yeah.
but back then you couldn't. Which is why
I
everybody in Narcs always has a beard
yeah.
because it's
I
like the
actually
only
heard
time.
that totally reformed law enforcement. They allowed beards and arm tattoos, and law enforcement's fixed.
Yeah, I think external carriers.
Hmm.
That was the final. That was the last piece that was
Yeah,
needed.
that was the glue to hold it all together.
Well, that's what fixed. That's what fixed law enforcement. What fixed the public relations was we had some barbecues, had some barbecues and community dinners, and played some yard games.
So there is like that's fun to make fun of, and I think maybe should be mocked is the dancing TikTok cops.
Yeah,
Um, that is funny because they just look silly and like no one takes you serious whenever you do that. Whatever, but I don't think they're trying to be taken serious whenever they do this. It's not like they're showing their serious face. You know.
yeah,
It's just kind of a lame community outreach. You look like a poser. You look like just a dork,
yeah.
an
Uh,
uncle.
on both sides. So on the one side, clearly this isn't your thing. You're just trying to like fit in. On
Yeah.
the other side, like from a cop's perspective, we're like, what are you doing? So everybody's
Yeah.
looking at you like, why?
So that's the silly, extreme, cartoonish version of community policing right now. But there is uh well, there's a ton, much more longer than we can even listen to this podcast, but there's a bunch of benefits to actual community relationship policing, which I
Yeah,
think
for sure.
is a good, which is ideal. I was going to say it's a good middle ground, but it's probably shouldn't even be a middle ground. That should be a focus of policing is community facing policing. Um,
Well, I mean, good policing and good cop work is community policing, but
yes.
not but the kind you're talking about, not the kind that comes to mind with the dancing cops or the
Yeah.
uh, you know handed out groceries. That's good
But
stuff, but good police work just involves good community
community
policing.
relationship. Yeah.
Yeah,
You have to have a relationship for the community that you serve. And the reason has to be maybe it's been in there, and I think with some of the older cops they do recognize this, but it's definitely not taught at the academy, is the idea of you actually are a servant of the community. Like you actually are a servant
a
of the
public
community.
servant. Yeah,
Yeah. Not to the, and I don't know how to articulate that to the best, but not, I'm saying not like where you're a rollover and you get to, like the community gets to boss you around whenever you're out there. But I think there, at least in my experience, in my view, it seems like that understanding of I actually am working for this community. I'm not working I'm not working to find out how many members of this community I can arrest. I'm
yeah,
actually working for this community, and arresting people is part of that. But
yeah.
just
Yeah, I think that probably a lot of times cops would see the community as getting in the way
absolutely.
of their police work. Um,
Well, I've said before that the only real cops are cops on third shift, but third shift is the shift that sees community at its worst, maybe.
yeah, where
Like
the
the
bugs
only
start to
time,
come out.
yeah. Second shift is definitely busier, but third shift, the only people you are interacting with is either
Paper boys
emergencies or criminals
and paper boys.
and
We
paper
talked
boys.
we
Well,
talked about we talked about them. I think
that's
last.
never gonna get aired. That
Yeah.
episode.
Okay. So, and actually, I deleted all of our previous episodes. I hope you had them saved.
Yeah.
Um, because we got the warning that uh we were out of storage or whatever.
Oh man,
Um,
I
but
needed.
so
Okay.
I've removed them from Zoom, so they are wherever they are.
There might be one that I missed in there, but I think if I
Oops.
let me look on here, I think I can still have it from the email because I've looked at this before. What were you saying? I'm sorry.
Um, I don't remember, but one thing I was going to say is that I think while officers might forget sometimes who they serve and they might forget that they serve, I think that there is an understanding that I think that most officers have reconciled that they would lay down their life for a citizen.
This recording does not exist. Okay, there is one that I missed. I should have
Oh man,
downloaded it.
what
It's all,
which one was it?
it was the one app that we did after Teapot, just me and you. And it wasn't Marg, it wasn't Teapot, it was the one that we recorded.
Oh man, that was one that we thought was really good, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
I know that was a good one.
Oh, that sucks. People are gonna have to take our word for it that it was the best.
That was a good you guys.
That
That
was
was
the
such
one
a
that was
good
gonna
one.
break through.
That was gonna be our first real good one.
Well, maybe I should. You know what I'll do in the future is I'll just delete like up to a month. We'll keep four on. We'll keep four in the hole, uh, just to make sure that doesn't happen again.
Man, and I was just thinking the other day. Nope, I didn't get it. That was on the 7th, and the last one I downloaded was on the 4th. Oh boy. Okay.
And you know what the worst part is? Is you put it in the trash, and then
Uh-huh.
there's an empty trash, and it says, if you
Are you
proceed,
sure?
you're not going to be able to recover it. It's going to be gone forever. And I was like, yeah, clear it. Why? Why would I already tried to delete it. Why would I possibly need it out of the trash can? You
Yeah,
dumb
continue to delete. I know what I'm doing, Zoom.
idiot.
Oh man. Oh well.
Well, what are you going to do? We could try to recreate it if we could just remember what we
Mm,
might have what we might have been talking about a month ago.
yeah. 14 days ago.
Okay,
14
couple
days
weeks.
ago. Dang.
Well, what regardless, what's new with you? What's new with the world? I don't know if we've said welcome yet.
Welcome everyone to Lawless Podcast with Justin and Clayton. I'm Clayton. It's my buddy Justin. We're smart. We know things. You guys are in for a treat.
So that was just like the entryway. That was like the foyer, the
Uh-huh.
grand foyer of
Foyer.
of the foyer of what you're about to walk into.
Yeah. That was a little treat. You
Yeah,
guys are in.
just
You guys are really
if
in for it. This is
if
going to be something special.
if that doesn't whet your appetite, then brother, you ain't alive.
Your wood's wet.
Uh, so yeah, is there anything new with you?
Yeah, I mean, nothing podcast worthy. Some personal stuff. I got a young man in my house and we're still navigating. I almost don't even want to say what's going to happen because every time we come to a determination of what's going to happen, it ends up changing. But I got a young man in my house that is about to be spreading his wings out into adulthood somehow, some way. Um,
What's that feel like? Is that terrifying, or is that like, do you feel like a release in the sense that you've raised a boy into he's a grown up now, he's somewhat responsible for himself?
Man, it makes me wonder. It's like all of parenting, you don't get to see if you're doing a good job or not until years afterwards. Like until you're looking at some sort of product. I wouldn't say finished product, but some sort of product that's like you're seeing the fruits of your rewards much later after you sowed them. Like
Yeah.
Caleb's a great kid. He's a sweet young man. He's smart. He's funny. But yeah, and, this kind of goes to a bunch of things. But like if there was something that I wanted to change in his personality at this point, that ship has sailed. That ship
Yeah.
sailed a long time ago. Like I'm saying, oh man, he needs more of this or he needs more of that. For just like as an example, he needs more determination or like whatever character trait I would want to think that he needs more of. At 17, that ship has sailed. So now I'm just seeing the product of mine and Ashley's parenting for the last 17 years.
Man, I don't know if that's I don't I agree with you mostly, but I still think that you can have a big influence on, like, even at 40, you
Oh,
can
sure.
you can develop a drive, or a personality trait. So I think that you could still have an influence on them, but I get what you're saying, that you're basically like your influence is getting a lot less.
Well, you know what I really hope? I really hope that I raise the kind of kid that will want to seek some sort of self-improvement whenever he's in his 40s or whenever all throughout
Yeah.
his life because I don't I think it's impossible to be the perfect parent. Yeah, it is impossible to be the perfect parent because you're never going to be, you're always operating from the past. Like, oh, well, when I was a kid, this is how I was raised, so this is what I'm going to do to you. Or I'm never going to do it like my parents did, so I'm going to do this. Either way, you're trying to correct the past onto this kid in the present. And the kid in the present isn't dealing with what you were dealing with in the past. They got their own
Yeah.
shit that they're dealing with now.
Right.
So,
And it's a different game with different rules.
yes.
Yeah.
And you honestly have no idea what they're going. I mean, you have an idea, but it's completely different. Um, so being the perfect parent is impossible. But what I think, at least what I see as a good parenting goal, is raising the kind of kids that will want to seek to improve themselves. Because I can't prepare them for the world, but I can hopefully give them the desire to prepare themselves. I can show them how I prepared myself, how that worked out, or at least show them how to prepare themselves. Like,
Yeah.
I can't show you the best example of mental health, but I can show you these practices and what therapy looks like, what self work looks like. I can show you 40 years of what self work looks like.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of like everything, even like with the relationship with God. I can't, or your spiritual relationship. I can't show you what your specific perfect spiritual relationship looks like with God, but I can show you what my practice is, and I can make you bring you into that if you want. M-
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my goal is to make kids that want to seek to improve. I can't make the perfect kid.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm not sure that you could improve on that on that outlook. Um, I mean, I think that is ultimately the goal. To at least as far as I know, as far as I can tell, for me, the goal is to want to improve myself. Um, which is funny. I was gonna bring this up anyway, but I will 100% forget where I was going.
That's
So
fine.
remind me to talk about that. So yeah, um, I guess in terms of like the self improvement, I
Uh-huh.
feel like I'm really lazy right now. Like I'm trying, and I don't know. Actually, when I was thinking through this the other day, I heard your voice. Like as I'm arguing with myself, I heard your voice say, "Dude, it's okay to like just take a break, and it's okay to
Yeah.
not always be striving." Uh, but I just feel like I'm not really doing any spiritual practices. I'm struggling to run at all.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm really not doing any like mental stuff. Like, you know, uh, I've got some books that I need to read, but I'm not really reading any, and I just feel like I'm being super unproductive, but I'm not sure. Like, it does feel like maybe there's a time to just float.
Well, do you feel like you've come out of a season of really grinding on that?
Oh,
Like
dude, I've
really?
I've been grinding on that my entire life.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and and what it may be is maybe having come to a sense of just not worrying so much about it, or like just being when when God is the universe, then it's a lot easier to understand or to wrestle with. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't really have to strive with it anymore. And so maybe it's just a result of that. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of in the same boat with you right now. Like I'm in this I definitely feel like I'm not doing enough. But that's a separate thing that I probably have to battle, that feeling of I'm not enough. Um but I definitely feel like I'm not doing as much as I could be right now, but I also feel like it's really weird, and it's even not related. Like consciously, it's not related, but I feel like coming out of the election and coming out of like this crazy news cycle that we were in for the last quarter of last year, there was a lot of like you and I, well, we've kind of been for the last couple of years, but like we've both gone through like bouts of depression and talking about like the tools and the routes that we use to get out of that. Spiritual, like theological breakthroughs, these weird philosophical journeys, talking about like um, Stoicism and Socrates or Deepak Chopra, or
Yeah.
like we last year we spent a lot of time in the grinder, and I feel like after the election, I feel like the election was almost like a physical manifestation of this. But after the election and after all of the shakeout, I'm like, whew, okay, now I'd rather listen to music than a podcast right now. I'd rather listen and I'd rather eat another piece of pizza than go for a run. To tell you the truth, that's how, kind of, and I'd rather smoke a Marlboro Red than, take my vitamins. Just kind of telling you how I
Yeah,
feel.
yeah, yeah. And I just obviously that's I guess the risk is that it's easy to fall into the trap of making that the norm,
Yeah.
um, because it's comfortable and it's so easy to stay comfortable. It is so easy to, or I should say, it's so hard to give up comfort. So once you get in, and I know myself, once I get in this rut of being lazy, it could probably I could probably make it last a while. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But again, I don't know that constantly striving is necessarily the goal.
Hmm. I think constantly striving, maybe that might not be the word you want to use, but I do think having a North Star is your constantly, it can be another version of constantly striving. What I'm saying is like not you're not constantly in fifth gear, you're not constantly like in keto, you're not constantly waking up with a Wim Hof breathing exercise and cold plunge or cold shower. You know what I mean? You're not constantly at 10, but at least having your North Star of like, I guess the North Star should just be a goal. Like, yeah, goals. Maybe a long-term goal, short-term goal, and like spiritual goal or philosophical goal. Maybe whatever. Yeah, I think a goal is a good word to use or a good idea with this. But like, okay, I'm not in marathon training mode right now, but I know this fall I do want to run the Wichita Marathon. So I can go through this season of maybe eating a little bit more carbs, maybe, doing not being in perfect triathlon shape. But I do know that this fall I have this marathon that I'm going to, so I can't get completely sloppy during this season. You know what I mean? I can
Hmm.
relax and I can take the thing off. How and yeah, and just coming up with goals like that for every aspect. And yeah, but what would that look like in the other aspects? What would a long-term spiritual goal be?
For me, probably it would involve something like I'm tempted to say confidence, but I don't think that that's it. I'm tempted to say to be settled, but I don't think I'll ever be spiritually settled. I think that I'm always going to be trying to find what's behind,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, I'm not I'm not totally sure what that would look like from a spiritual level or
You,
perspective.
you know, just thinking about me personally, at one point in my life, because I have had like spiritual goals in the past, and I've looked at some of those notes like in old journals. A couple of them's behind me on my bookshelf. They were always like focused on my works. So like it would be like I want to be praying 5 times a day. I want to be fasting, this much time. I want to go on this amount of mission trips. I want to be involved in this, in this many church roles or whatever. It was always based on my works. My theological and spiritual views have shifted so much to where now this is kind of weird because in one plane this is true, in another plane that can never be true. But like now I see that I am connected with God and there's actually no getting away from it. Like used to I thought I could never do enough push-ups to get to God. Well, now I know that push-ups is out of the equation. Like, hey homie, you're stuck with God. Win, lose or draw, you're with God. So now what a goal, a spiritual goal, what it would look like, and I'm just kind of spitballing this in real time, is it would be more about communion, communication, like a relationship. Now I just want a dialogue. I just want a dialogue with me and what God is to me right now. I just want a constant dialogue. And I haven't felt as plugged in. Like I haven't felt like I'm in triathlon mode spiritually, but something I have been doing to at least keep me in the communication is praying my rosary. Just having a ritual, and it's usually in my truck. It's in my truck right now, but it's usually in my truck, so it's usually like in the parking lot of my work, or yeah, usually going to work or like on my lunch break, or maybe in the morning, or maybe when I get home. I might fiddle with it tonight. Um, but just yeah, just and it can be monotonous, and it can be totally like void of relationship. But I think that's like actually I think that's a Western evangelical critique of the rosary. That's not true. But it like I guess on paper it can be you're just saying the words and you're just touching the beads. There's no real relationship there. But I don't know how many times you can say, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of our death. I don't know how many times you can say that without eventually picturing Mary in front of you and picturing the virgin teenager that took on the weight of the world by having, a Messiah, however you want to envision this, you know what I mean? However you want
Mm-hmm.
to, what the what the meaning and the deeper spiritual meaning is, however it is to you, but a teenage girl had God moved on her and she gave birth to a Messiah. It's not the first time that story's been told, but this particular story happens to be the most powerful story in the history of Earth. This particular one, Mary and Jesus, happens to be the most powerful story in the history of this planet. And uh, there's just some power to that. Imagining this woman, or this, like I said, this little girl, and she's already a mother figure. And, I think, whatever. I think we starve for a mother figure spiritually because it's been stripped away from us as in Western evangelicals. Like we didn't have Mary, and I think Mary equals out the yin and the yang of the father and mother figure. Even though they might not specifically say that, it's definitely presented that way. And you come to find out that ancient Hebrews had a Shira. Is that her name? It was God's wife.
Asherah.
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 Asherah. I said Ashira. Asherah. Yeah, it was God's wife. Like there was a mother figure back in the day. We hunger for this mother figure. So as soon as you're praying to this mother figure, it's in the rosary. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with you. Blessed art thou among women, blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Like you're not only talking to the source, you're talking to the source of the source. Like you have the power of the universe in your hand, and you have her ear, and you're saying you're just saying her name, and you're saying, "Blessed art you," and pray for me. Like you're good, pray for me, Mom. You're just saying that a bunch of times over and over. I don't know how many times you can say that without like getting into, and that's another part of it, getting into a trance of this mantra to where you lose yourself. You know what I mean? Like just like how the Hindus or how other spiritual practices would use mantras in this meditation, you eventually lose yourself in the presence of God with this.
When so like what's a typical time when you would recite that, and like why?
So today, I said it a couple times today. Today, I said it on my way into work, and it's because it was a long drive. I knew I would have time to get through the whole thing. Um, I worked at a different location today, so I knew I would have time to get through the whole thing, and There's a bunch of different reasons. The main reason I did it consciously was to check the box because I wanted to have a time of communion with me and God. I don't think we've talked about it on here, but you and I have talked about it somewhat recently, like in the last couple months, that I don't want to. And I think we're together on this. We might say it different ways, but I don't want to abandon Christianity. Like just because my theological ideas have evolved and have grown, like I think, you know, there's lots of things I think,
Yeah.
but I still have room in my heart for Christ. And not
Yeah.
I'm not saying that in the woo-woo way. I still have room in my heart for Christianity. And
Mhm.
even though I know God is bigger than Christianity, I grew up with Christianity, and so why throw out something that's still working?
Yeah.
Especially now that I can take out the broken parts that I don't like.
Well, when you look at it this way, when you don't have to mash it all together,
Yeah.
when you look at it as a story, for me, it's a lot more powerful
Yes.
because I don't have to try to make it make sense. I can just say, oh,
Yeah.
well, this is just a story. Like this is just trying to explain what we are, how we got here, like
Yeah.
why we feel guilty, why we, how you handle that feeling. Um, which I think we've said before. I think ultimately is the purpose of religion is to explain how we got here, what we are, where we're going,
Yeah.
and depending on where you are on the earth, you're more likely to hear the story from a different perspective.
Yeah.
And us having heard the Christian perspective, it works.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm good with it. I'll
It's
stick
not
with it.
yeah, it's not perfect, but you know what? And the ancient theologies and really our theology that did this too back in the day, but we just kind of snuffed it out, is the deities themselves were imperfect. Like think about like the Greek mythologies. Zeus made a lot of mistakes. He did a lot of sinning. Um, in Norse mythology, one of like their cardinal sins would be being a kinslayer. Like that's what there's a book of rules. One of their books was Odin laying out like a bunch of rules, kind of like a book of Proverbs, like a combination of Proverbs and Ecclesiastes, like a time for this, a time for that. But one of their top sins is killing your kin, being a kinslayer. Well, Odin, the pantheon, like the head of the pantheon, comes in by killing his father, and he makes the world by committing the ultimate sin. So what I was getting to is a bunch of theologies had imperfect deities built into it, and you almost wonder like, well, why? Like if you all created this anyway, why create an imperfect deity? Why not make him perfect? And I get the feeling that you don't relate to them as much if they're not flawed in some way.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. Yeah, I think and I think that's probably one of the main reasons that Jesus being man is such a key point. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, obviously that's a key point of the story is that he knows he became a man. He knows exactly what you're going through.
Yeah.
Uh, So yeah, I think that's a same thing.
Yeah. So yeah, I pray the rosary to check the box to get me in a commune with God. But I'm asking for favors when I pray the rosary too. Like I'm also, prayer is so cool and it's so special because that is a word. Prayer is a word, prayer, that we use to describe this action of talking to a divinity. Like I'm crossing realms with these words. I'm talking to something in the spiritual realm from the physical realm with these words. Like these words have power. Another word that can be used for that is a spell or an incantation. Like these words have power and can change the metaphysics of the universe. Um, I believe that. Like, to a degree, I believe there's lots of things that can affect that, but I believe that your words are powerful, and I believe that either talking to your higher self or even talking to a deity, maybe the same thing. I believe that I can talk to the power of the universe and say, "Hey, keep my family safe today.
Hmm.
Keep keep my son focused on what he has to do. Keep me focused." And just by me saying, "God, I want you to keep me focused," that is just that in itself is going to draw my attention to me trying to stay more focused during the day.
Well, and not to get all like moonbeam or whatever, but uh, I also think that when you have friends and others pray for you, I think
Yes.
that it creates, and whether I at the moment don't think that there's a like conscious being type God. Like I don't like as we're praying, I don't know that we're speaking to a deity per se, but I do think there's huge value in praying. Um, but I think that by you praying and me praying and him praying, it still causes change, and I think
Yeah.
that it still increases the what you call it, like the power meter, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost like, we've described like this web, or yeah, like this net, like you almost picture like everyone's walking around the earth, zooming out from like you to the whole earth. Everyone's walking around, but everyone has like this blue or a gold beam coming out of their head, and it's all connecting to the source.
Yeah.
And it's all going out in their own weird way. But if you, yeah, come say hi.
What's up, guys?
Hi, Justin.
How are you?
Good.
Cash man. Oh, I like that shirt. Does that say California on it?
Yeah,
That's
dude,
a
we're surfers.
that's a cool shirt, bro. That's a shirt that I would have worn when I was a kid.
Hell yeah, dude.
I
Heck
I
yeah.
like I like that a lot.
Allie's wearing a pretty dress that I bought
Yeah.
her today.
Oh,
Allie, that looks like a are those snowflakes or diamonds? What are those?
Flowers,
flowers.
Oh, nice.
bouquets of flowers.
Oh, pretty. All right. Very cool. And I see your earrings. Those are cool.
Yeah.
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 Nice.
All right, you guys said hi. Bye bye.
Oh,
Love you. I'm gonna reblock the door that was supposed to keep you out the first time.
you guys got in?
Yeah, you guys got in. Speaking of God.
You- You're gonna have to get one of those burglar bars.
Yeah, for real. But
Uh, Speaking of God, what do you mean?
oh, them. That was God coming in here.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh oh, but what I was saying, like, if you can imagine, we're all walking around the planet, and we all have like our own little connection with God, and it's all going in our own particular way. Like it's all serving, whatever. It's all focused on the individual. Well, you can be praying, or whatever. Yeah, praying and is the word will be used, but you can be concentrated or focused on your own problems, and you just have that power, like your single source. But if I see you and I put my focus and attention on your problems or whatever you're concentrating on, now you have your power and my power. We're concentrating on the same thing, and we get three in that.
Hmm.
It's multitudes. Um, that's kind of like the idea, even if it's not going to a consciousness, like you say, that power, that connection to like the Atman, or yeah, the source, whatever.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people experience that in religious environments.
Hmm.
You know, when there's a big group of people all gathered for the same thing, and there's when everybody's together, there is a feeling. You know, it's the same as at a concert that's particularly good and the crowd is united. Whatever it is, when there's a group of people that are united in something, there's a vibe and an energy. And I think sometimes we people attribute that to um, maybe the Holy Spirit or something. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're telling me I grew up in a Pentecostal church, and there was an element of that. Probably the driving element was that of like group consciousness or like hive mind, hive think. Yeah, definitely like a group consciousness thing. And I mean, it's powerful and it's real because you see it play out even like yeah, anytime there's a séance or there's uh like all these ancient pictures of religious, groups coming together from all the traditions. It's always a group coming together, and imagine them like chanting or playing drums, maybe some smoke's burning, and they get to where they're all swaying together, maybe singing some songs, and eventually it's more of like just a group mind, of a hive mind. And now you throw in the tradition of we dance. Like whenever the spirit comes on us, you dance. You can't control it. And if you see this imprinting from a baby coming up, like everyone, your mom, your dad, everyone does this thing.
Grandma. Yep.
Grandma. So whenever you start getting, these songs start hitting you and you start feeling these feelings that you can't describe, well, I know one way I can get this out is by doing this dance, you
Yeah.
know, and that could be part of it. Either
Now,
way, like I think we were getting to, either way, it's repeatable. Like you see a bunch of different cultures and traditions doing a form of this.
yeah. And it's good, I think. Like
I think so too.
whatever it is, I think that it's good and it's right. Whatever method we use, I think that it's just something that we ultimately need.
You know what? You know what's really important? An important part of religion in general that I think we're seeing now is there's almost a depression that comes on that might be unavoidable whenever you find yourself out of a spiritual tradition or out of a spiritual house. Like if you call
Mm,
yourself this, like
yeah.
I'm Clayton, I'm a father, I'm a cop, and I'm a Christian, and I'm all
Yeah.
these things. But if one of those things, or maybe even two or three of those things, gets taken out from you, um, you lose a foundational piece of your identity. It's confusing and it's sad. Like there's a grieving period you go through. We've talked about that before. There's grief with it. It's confusing. It's anxiety ridden. Um, yeah, it's depressing to be outside of that. And I think you see, I think you see it in society, the society that's largely abandoned any form of traditional religion, like spiritual but not religious, SBNR. I
Hmm.
would say most people identify as that today.
Hmm.
Maybe the numbers might still say that we're a Christian nation, quote unquote, but I would say most people are actually in some form of spiritual but not religious, even if they still go to church on Sunday. They're
Right.
somewhere in that spiritual but not
Well,
religious.
is that where you'd say you are? I think
Definitely.
that's where I am.
Yeah, definitely. I think yeah, yeah.
Even
I'm in that
e-
SBNR spectrum.
even though we would still call ourselves Christians and we're attending Christian churches.
Yeah, and because it's so much more. Like the main thing that the one of the main reasons I guess that people get out of the church or get out of these groups is because like, oh, I can't intellectually make sense. I see too many holes in this. Like you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. I see the Old Testament stuff. I see the New Testament books not jive, and I'm too smart for this. I'm out of this church. Well, whenever you take yourself out of the church because you think you're too smart, and you might be, whatever, you see the holes in the logic of the theology. Well, now you're missing the community, you're missing the purpose, you're missing the virtues that were in there, you're missing all of this extra stuff, this bonus material that comes with this spiritual practice,
Mm-hmm.
to where now you're uh like an empty trash bag in the wind. You're just going wherever the breeze blows you, and it can be daunting and it can be depressing. I feel like we're seeing that in our society a lot, manifesting in confusion. And I don't want to go down this road because I don't want to articulate it in a way that might be offensive to someone. But there's a lot of confusion in the world, and I think it's because there's good, bad, or indifferent. There's people leaving spiritual practices. Like most people are not in a defined spiritual practice anymore.
Yeah, man, I think you're spot on, 100%.
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I'm still trying to make sure I hit everything with the rosary. But yeah, I have World War III going on outside my doors right now. Um,
Are they kicking the door in?
yeah, no, they're having their own battles out there. I'm not involved in this one. I'm just an audible spectator. But yeah, I think we're not. You don't have to be constantly dialed up to 10. You don't have to be in David Goggins mode. But maybe having something just to keep you grounded, like a North Star. Yeah, goals would probably be the best thing to keep, would be that North Star. Have some goals and have something that you can do, if not every day, on a regular basis to keep you pointed toward that goal. Whatever, like financial goals, you're not worried about your budget every single day, maybe, but you do throw some money into savings. Every check you get, every commission check you get, you throw some money into savings. You know, yeah, you're not piling down whatever that goal is right now, but every time you get a chance, you make a little chip at it. Whatever that would be. Yeah, whatever those goals would be in the other aspects. I guess you just coming up with those goals is a good first start.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about a spiritual goal, kinda. I don't know. So I said communion. Yeah, daily communion is my goal. What else could be a spiritual goal?
I mean, if you could use spiritual practices, which I do think, like praying the rosary, I think that even if it's just words, I think that it can create a spiritual. There can be a benefit,
Yeah.
whether it's the trance or the mantra or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that could be a goal to have a regimented time maybe.
Uh-huh.
I'm not really a fan of that. Honestly, that takes me back to my youth group days where we used to have to do daily devotionals, and we
Yeah.
used to have to write out like our understanding or our takeaway or whatever from the devotional, and then had to turn it in, and then the ladies read them, and oh my goodness, all for points, so we could buy something. But anyway, I can't. What was what were we talking about later or earlier?
Well, I don't know. Well, we started off by talking about how not really feeling great about anything. Like you don't feel like you're
Oh,
David Goggins. David
right,
Goggins did it right now.
right. Hey, can we acknowledge? I'm not sure how this shirt looks on screen to you. Does it
Uh-huh.
look like I'm wearing? Like, is it weird looking?
No.
Okay, because it's weird looking on my screen.
You're feeling a little self-conscious about your appearance?
I'm feeling real self-conscious about my shirt. Like it's just like it's like I'm just a shape, just
You're
a
just
square, just a square. Is that what it looks like? Like my head. Hey, look, does it look like my head is just floating?
Yeah, sure. Sure does.
Well, I feel yeah. Anyway, but if I don't look weird, then I can put that behind me and move on.
We started to talk about this before on the podcast that's gone. Um, uh, what do you know? Like I said, we've gone over this a little bit before, so you're welcome to use your enhanced knowledge now. What do you know about the Iran-Contra affair?
um,
You don't remember anything about it?
well, remind me of the highlights. I know the Oliver North. It involved missiles. It involved Oliver North sold secrets. Is that what it was? He sold secrets for something.
Yeah, Oliver North. There's a couple people. Key players was Ronald Reagan, who is the president, who probably actually did all of this. He just made Oliver North take the fall. Oliver North ended up getting convicted and going to prison, but was pardoned later. Um, Robert McFarlane, National Security Advisor, CIA Deputy Director William Casey, and other Congress officials. What they did was um, they sold weapons to Iran. They sold missiles to Iran after we had an embargo against Iran because of the Iranian hostage crisis. Remember Jimmy Carter, the Iranian hostage crisis? So this
Yeah.
is past Iranian hostage crisis. We had a complete embargo with any sort of trade, any sort of business dealings with Iran. Like there's
For how long had that embargo been in place?
for years at that point.
Okay.
Um,
And when
but
you say they sold, like
the U.S. government,
okay,
by way of the Department of Defense and the CIA, sold weapons to Iran to fight the Iraqis, who we were on the Iraqi side of that conflict. We were playing both sides. Um,
now so just in my upbringing,
uh-huh.
Iran has always been the bad guy. Is that or have they always been America's enemy, so to speak?
I
Or
mean, you can go back. They've always been the enemy of the West. Iran is the Persians.
so
This
when we
literally goes
sold,
back to Alexander the Great.
why would we sell them missiles if they're against our best interest?
Well, because there was when you say our best interest, you have to think about what's in the best interest of the United States, like on paper, and what would be the best interest of the United States that would like be communicated on the evening news by Walker Cronkite or whatever, Walter Cronkite, like what that best interest looks like, and what our best interest is in the opinion of the CIA director in the 1980s and the president of the 1980s. Because what was happening was these Contras. So that's the Iran side of the Iran Contra affair. We sold some weapons to get some cheese from Iran. We needed some money off the books. We needed because like we're seeing with USAID, um, for the most part, every dollar has a receipt that goes with it. Like I said, it doesn't actually happen this way, but it's supposed to, and on the most part, it kind of does. You can track where your tax dollars are being spent. Well, we had these Contras in South America that were fighting. Oh man, I want to get this right. They were fighting
And what's a contra?
it was these militant groups, these militia groups that are the CIA was funding and training, and equipping to fight in Nicaragua, to overthrow the government. We so something else that we had laws against at the time, and we still do have these laws. Like we have laws against funding terrorist organizations, and these Contras were on terrorist watch lists. Like we have laws against funding and training terrorists. Go ahead. Do you have something to say?
No, I'm
Oh, yeah. And we didn't need a paper trail showing that we were funding and training these terrorist groups to overthrow the
yeah.
democratically elected president that we didn't like at the time. So what we did is use the money from these weapon sales to Iran to fund these black ops going on in South America. We were committing one crime to fund the other crime, and ended up being exactly what was found out in
And
court.
how did they get found out?
So there was a Lebanese journalist, a Lebanese newspaper that broke the story and ended up getting the attention of like the BBC and every Western major media outlet. Back then, before they were all completely controlled by the CIA, evidenced by foiling a major CIA operation.
Yeah.
Um,
So we definitely need to get back to what's going on with Iran now, but I think that actually pause. This wouldn't be a bad thing to start. Well, for me, I really feel like this is a creative time in my life.
Uh-huh.
Like I'm just at a spot where I'm just making stuff and thinking of ideas. And I don't know if any of them will stick. And I don't even know that I necessarily need to be like doing stuff for a purpose necessarily. I don't know, but like,
You know,
just,
I had a real almost like a need to get out there into the world. Um, my spiritual crisis that I was just coming out of whenever we started recording this, like at the tail end of the deconstruction
mhm.
is when we started recording this. I felt like I had a need to just verbalize that. To be like, hey, someone listen, this is blah.
Yeah,
I had 40 years of this and now it's all on top of its head and blah.
yeah,
And I feel like now I've gotten that out of my system.
right. And 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 that might be some of what I'm feeling and what you may be feeling of this. Like, I guess
Yeah.
there's like I'm okay. Like I
It's scary to feel okay.
yeah. Like
You know,
it creates an anxiety even just thinking about like resting or just
yeah. Having your guard down, being complacent.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we've demonized that, but so there's a bunch of things. People, I think
We
people,
need to we need to let's start the thing over or start the record back, right? I don't know. I have no idea what you're talking about.
oh, it's okay.
Well, what do you want to how are we going to edit this back in?
I mean, we can even leave that whole thing in there. Well, I can take out the part where you said. Okay.
Uh so what else you been up to?
No, you know, I I've talked about this before and I practiced this today, and I don't know if I want this to be like a part of who I am. Like whenever I'm in a social situation, I feel the onus of that situation to make it an enjoyable experience. Like whenever I had our we had our sweetheart dance at Sycamore Elementary School. So all the kids went there and they all got to wear dresses. The girls wore dresses and the boys wore nice shirts or whatever. They danced and the parents stood around and, yapped it up while the kids danced and had fun. Um, for my whole life, and I think this came from church and it came from a bunch of things from the group home, but like whenever I'm having a conversation with someone, especially like this situation, like a dad at a school function, imagine like a basketball game or a soccer game or something like that, I feel a pressure to almost like carry the conversation. Like, and no one's putting that pressure on me, but I feel the
Yeah.
pressure to be like, "Hello, Justin. How's work? How's your family? Do you have any long-term goals? Are you going to be vacationing somewhere?" Like, go through the ninja script almost in my mind with every conversation that I have. And I started talking about this last year, and I practiced this tonight to where if an awkward if an awkward silence, and there's actually a weird piece of me that loves this, and I think you'd know this too, but if an awkward silence comes up in the conversation, I can let it be awkward. You know what? If this conversation's dying out, I don't have to throw a lifeline to the conversation. I can just let this conversation die out. there wa-
And, and just smile at the person as you both just drift away.
but you know what? There's two people in this conversation.
Yeah.
And if they want to keep it going,
Yeah.
they can keep it going. I heard there is this woman preacher. Man, I can't remember her name, but she was a real popular preacher. She was on TBN, and I think she was Pentecostal. She was definitely evangelical, but she told the story of when she was telling a story at a party, and she realized everyone had stopped listening to her, and she realized that was her cue that she needed to stop talking, or that no
Isn't
one
it the
was listening
worst?
to her. And so like I took that as my childhood. I was thinking, "Ooh, I never want to be telling a story and everyone loses interest." So I thought that meant I had to tell stories where no one would lose their it'd be impossible for them to lose their interest.
Okay.
Now I'm on the other end of that. I'm
Now,
like, oh, go ahead.
as a young kid, then cause you to like make these big elaborate lies as as a so like I mean to make these stories that people would never lose interest in? Did that cause like how did you do that as a kid?
Want to be entertaining, to feel the need to entertain, yeah, and to carry the conversation, and yeah, to tell stories that no one would lose interest in. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, whatever that is, that plan, that was definitely a big seed in that. Um, well, now I'm on the other end of this to where I was having a conversation with a dad that I had met before, and he's a okay guy, whatever. Nothing bad to say about him at all. But hey, his name's not Jim. Hey Jim, how are you? Shake, shake, shake. And we stare out and look at the kids, and I'm thinking, this is the time where you need to ask a question to keep this conversation going. But then I thought, nah, if he wants to have a conversation, he can ask me a question. And you know what? He didn't ask me a question. We
Yeah.
just sat there and stared out at the gym full of kids, and it was okay.
Yeah. I don't that would be difficult for me because I feel the same thing.
Yeah.
I feel the I don't know, and I don't know why.
Or you feel like you're being rude if you don't?
Yeah, especially if I feel like the I don't know if the person doesn't have someone else to talk to or something.
Uh-huh.
Like I feel compelled to do it. Um, I'm trying to pull my shoe off, and it's not working very well because my hands are up here.
I want to keep this all in, so I'm not going to ruin it. But I'm going back and forth in my head to figure if I'm going to edit this podcast. Like I want to I want to have an unedited version. Like maybe if we were going to have
Years down the road,
a Patreon, like there you can have a Patreon where people get the unedited version of these podcasts, because technically, since you're paying for it, you don't have to follow copyright laws or something like that. But I'm obviously not a lawyer. Uh, uh, but yeah, while you're talking, yeah, I caught myself with my shit-eating grin. I was thinking, I want to send him a non-edited version of this. How much am I going to edit? I'll edit it out.
Uh,
Well, I farted. That's what happened. I farted real loud and I didn't want it to be on here, so we edited it out.
because that would have been rude.
That would have been rude and embarrassing. And if there's one thing I'm not, if there's two things I'm not,
Rude or embarrassing.
rude or embarrassing.